right, welcome on in to another action-packed episode of the Between the Hash Marks podcast. As always, I'm Matt Lombardo, joined on this beautiful Festivus Monday, a day early, the Festivus for the rest of us, by my colleague, my good friend, my mentor, Mike Tanier joins me, as always. Mike, what's going on, my friend?
Yippee-ki-yo-ki-yay. My airing of grievances is against the officiating in that Eagles game yesterday. My feat of strength was waking up this morning.
Or putting on the hat. I love the
Yes.
Santa hat. I got a bit nervous before we went on the air that the typical podcasting hat was absent. I thought maybe you lost it in a feat of strength somewhere, or you accidentally hung it on the Festivus pole on the way out of the bar and forgot to grab it. But this is an upgrade for the season.
Just an upgrade for the season. That hat's going to disintegrate on air someday. I've been wearing it nonstop for 5 years. It's going to poof, and it's going to be dust.
Yeah, it sounds like it's headed in that direction. It sounds like after that game yesterday that you could really use a drink. So as we, ease into the Christmas holiday with Christmas Eve coming up right around the corner, Christmas Day, 2 NFL games that we can't wait to dive into and preview, and an action-packed day yesterday, an unfortunate outcome for the Philadelphia Eagles. It does seem like you could use a beverage today. So why don't we start out with our favorite Christmas beverages?
Okay, well, this isn't my favorite Christmas beverage. We've talked in the past about Chimay and Belgian triples, but I wanted to pick something up a little different for the holidays. And this is Founders,
Ooh,
KPS. Let me get close to the camera.
there it is.
And what it is a spicy chocolate stout in a bourbon barrel that was aged in bourbon barrels.
Now you're speaking my language. Now
Yeah.
you're speaking my language, because if you read the "What am I drinking tonight" section of the column this morning, I had a great bourbon barrel aged beer over the weekend. It was a variation of Wolf King from Rusty Rail Brewery in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. This was called Dread Wolf. It's a coffee oatmeal stout aged in bourbon barrels, and it was tremendous.
That's awesome. I don't drink stouts much anymore, but I wanted something. It's like 5 degrees here in Greater Philly.
Yes.
And I wanted something a little different, and I'm going to pop one open now. But what do you got?
Yeah, so I have a lot of favorite Christmas beverages. Christmas Eve is a tradition. The kids go to bed. The wife and I watch It's a Wonderful Life, and I drink an Irish coffee.
Nice.
Too many beers to name. I love Fagley's Root Elf. That's the class of its own. It's a Belgian triple with spices. It's like 11% alcohol by volume, so not doing that today. But I do have the seasonal favorite, eggnog. I put myself a mini eggnog for the occasion that we're going to mix with the spice rum. A little bit of spice rum goes into the eggnog, followed by a little bit of Crown Royal whiskey in honor of.
Oh, okay, that's a little different. That's a little different putting the Crown in there.
Yes, and you mix that all up nice. Get it with the stir going there, and you can't leave out the little garnish of the nutmeg on top of the eggnog.
You wanted to blow me away. You had to get the little grater out and grate the nutmeg. That would have been elite football podcasting right there. We grated our own nutmeg for this one.
Well, cheers to you, my friend, and all of these great episodes to come, and a fun season, and a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody out there.
Absolutely. Beautiful podcasting, by the way, to have this moment of silence to anyone who's listening. So
yes, absolutely.
I take my
probably holding a moment of silence for Kirk Cousins this time with the Atlanta Falcons, because he was unceremoniously benched going into Sunday's games. The Atlanta Falcons turn the page. Raheem Morris, the head coach, comes out and says that this is a permanent change, I guess as permanent as it can be, the final 3 weeks of the regular season.
Right.
But I'll pose this to you. Was it the right move at the right time for the Falcons to turn the page from Kirk Cousins' turnover machine to Michael Penix, the great unknown, with 3 weeks remaining in the season?
It was the right call. It was a courageous call, because the way Raheem Morris could have played this, that Kirk Cousins ekes out a win against the Raiders. And then, it was the Giants. I think the Falcons were going to win with you or I or Kirk Cousins at quarterback. Then ekes out a win with Kirk Cousins. And then you sort of prolong the agony, and you create this situation where you're masking the greater problem with this. This guy's not moving the ball. This guy is causing too many turnovers. He's very immobile. It seems like the team is not responding anymore to what's going on. And instead you say, look at this very winnable game against Drew Lock, and I don't call them Blue Rugers anymore, and Blue Rowan. Okay. Get out. Let's get the kid out there where we're going to win. We can win with defense. We can win with Bijan, and he can just manage the game. I think he did a little more than manage the game, frankly. But like that, the emphaticness. He's getting this game. He gets this win. We're back in the divisional hunt, and we very clearly, emphatically said it. Yeah, Kirk Cousins is not coming back. This isn't a trial, whatever. This is the final thing. Great optics and great decision making by Raheem Morris. I think other coaches would have just tried to roll the season out.
Yeah, and I'm going to take a completely different path here. I think that it might have been a little bit too late to make the move, but
Okay.
the one thing that I do here is I applaud the Falcons for making the right move, regardless of timing. But
Mhm.
even more than that, I applaud Arthur Blank's willingness to take a blowtorch to $64 million in dead money going into 2025 and
Right.
upwards of $100 million that's still guaranteed to Kirk Cousins. It's
Uh-huh.
really refreshing to see a team and a franchise freed from the constraints of the salary cap or fiscal responsibility and doing
Common
the right
sense.
thing and
Yeah.
common sense for their team, for their playoff chances. But here's the thing. Maybe they'll wind up getting bailed out because the Cowboys decided when nothing mattered that's when they were going to play like everything
Right.
mattered on Sunday night and they beat the Buccaneers, which
Right.
leaves the door cracked open a little bit for Atlanta to win that division.
Yeah.
But I think I addressed this in the mailbag 2 or 3 weeks ago. The Falcons needed to go to Penix earlier than this. I don't care who your starter is. When you throw one touchdown to 9 interceptions over a 5-game stretch,
Hmm.
I'd like to see the kid not only play meaningful snaps with the playoffs on the line, but more snaps to prepare him for 2025 to build that chemistry with his playmakers going into the offseason and really get that evaluation underway.
Devil's advocate on that. I don't want him going against the Broncos defense at Denver a couple of weeks ago. I think that creates a
Fair.
situation, right? And then you get the similar situation with the Vikings. Hey, go into Minnesota and try to beat the Vikings defense in like your first or second start. That was a bad one. And so you have the Chargers in between there. Whatever. That's another tricky defense. So the one thing is, yeah, against the Raiders, you could have gone out there against the Raiders on Monday night, and that probably would have been a win as well. Now we're just kind of like, I don't know, splitting hairs here. They came away with a win there. Now we have the end of the season where, you get the Commanders, you get the Panthers coming up, you get a bigger evaluation for him. It's almost obvious he's going to be the 2025 starter.
Oh, no doubt about it. I don't think they've even left the door cracked open
No.
for Kirk Cousins to come back. And you're right, this was the ultimate soft landing
Mhm.
for Michael Penix Jr. against these Giants who are playing more like the little Giants from the movie back in the 90s. But I did get a quote going into the game from an NFL executive who said this was a really good move by the Falcons. Kirk can't move anymore, and Michael Penix is a better thrower and he's more accurate, unquote. I don't know that we saw all of that on Sunday, but he certainly looked like the decision making was there.
Yep.
The interception bounced off of Kyle Pitts' hands. It wasn't really his fault.
Mhm.
You can start to stack some building blocks on top of what we saw Sunday for the Falcons.
Velocity on the ball was good. Accuracy was good. Decision making was good. There were times we had to check to his second and third guy. He had other drops besides the Pitts play. The second half was all a joke, and that's fine because the defense had kind of taken care of its business. You want those building blocks. I compare beginning of the season, Jared Mayo, Alex Van Pelt, the Patriots were taking all kind of heat for putting Brissett out there week after week after week. Brissett was absorbing the punishment so that like when Drake May came out there, like there was a little more of a fighting chance. Not much because the Patriots still stink, but it wasn't like this disaster going against top defenses. That's what Kirk Cousins ended up doing for Mike Penix. The problem is he did it for $100 million, not for Brissett for 2 million or whatever Brissett makes out there. And that's where you mentioned the money. How much money has Arthur Blank spent on over the hill quarterbacks? All the extra money at the end of the Matt Ryan contract, all this money. Like you, me, and everyone we know could live for the rest of our lives on this money, and it just gets flushed down 35-year-old quarterbacks. It's stunning.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins' agent, Mike McCartney, belongs in the Sports Business Hall of Fame for getting him all of this guaranteed money on
Yeah.
this deal, especially coming off of a tenure in Minnesota where he never quite lived up to the expectations, to never quite get them over the hump, certainly not into a Super Bowl. But, the Falcons are one of these teams that they're in Santa's sack, so to speak, of teams that just won't go away as
Yes.
the playoff chase intensifies.
They're diehards. They're
Yeah.
Christmas diehards.
Yippee-ki-yo, right?
Yippee Kaye. They are, and the Falcons are one of them. By the way, now you mentioned McCartney. I can't wait to a couple drinks in, hear somebody complaining about this contract in Indianapolis.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
more than a few people, I'm sure.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, the Falcons were diehard. We had some other diehards that we picked out for this week.
We did, and I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off for you right out of the chute. The Washington Commanders, can they steal the NFC East here? Can they overtake the Eagles after pulling off an improbable come from behind win where they turned the football over 5 times?
Yeah.
And thankfully for Washington, it was Kenny Pickett on the other side for the better part of 3.5 quarters after Jalen Hurts was knocked out of the game with a concussion. That now there's a cloud of uncertainty converging over the Eagles.
Yes.
What's the ceiling for the Commanders in Mike Tanier's opinion?
I still don't see them taking the division. If you look at how well the Eagles were playing before Hurts got hurt, where it looked like they were complete control of the game, they still played pretty well with Kenny Pickett out there. The question is, and I woke up this morning and like I'm in a silly thing. Like, I better get a Jalen Hurts injury update. It's a concussion. He's in protocol. You don't get an MRI. That's not how this works. So we're going to be days like looking at these practice reports, which are like virtual practice reports because it's going to be Christmas and everything like that. But I don't think the Eagles will have a problem with the Cowboys. And I think the Commanders could still have a problem with the Michael Penix before the new quarterback smell wears off. Falcons next week. That should be it for the Eagles to win the division. The question is, the Commanders coming in, Commanders, are they a threat to the Eagles if the Eagles are the top seed that doesn't get the first round bye? Are they a threat to some of these other teams? And that's the question that I have to ask of that team.
And haven't I been saying that since day one? Haven't I been saying they've been in the mix for this division? I think we did the first podcast back on August 12th. It was still kind of warm outside. I think we were talking about Dayton Daniels and the rookie quarterbacks. And I remember being effusive in my praise of that roster, of Jaden's upside, what Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, the GM are building. I wasn't all that surprised, even with or without Kenny Pickett, that the Commanders won that game on Sunday. Mm-hmm. But you talk about the Eagles, and I think that what we saw with that offense being so limited in the running game in the second half, Saquon Barkley has 109 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter and something like 40 yards the rest of the way.
Right.
Take a key cog like Jalen Hurts out of that machine. Yes, I know that it's the Cowboys, even though they decide that football matters again and they want to play for Mike McCarthy for whatever reason. And I know it's the Giants after that, so you have another soft landing. But if Hurts misses time here because of this concussion, the door is cracked open a little bit, is it not?
The door is definitely cracked open. And again, any team that loses their starting quarterback, and Jalen Hurts is an elite starting quarterback. You take away his ability to force the ball downfield more. You take away his ability to do a designed run. Suddenly, everything is stacked against Saquon.
Right.
And if you look at the targets, like I criticize Hurts that like all the targets are just going to AJ and Smitty. Well, all the targets went to AJ and Smitty yesterday. There were no backs. Saquon had like 1 drop. There was no Craig Calcaterra. Jahan Dotson is absolutely an invisible man. Invisible man. Whoever the fourth receivers are, it's not happening. And the Eagles can't go out there against the Cowboys and say, well, here's Kenny Pickett. All he knows how to do is to force the ball to A.J. Brown, and we're going to try and beat you with Saquon because you're going to stack the box against them. That said, you can't say the concussion didn't look too serious or whatever. It looked like something where it would have been a borderline call. I think we're going to see Jalen Hurts next Sunday. It's not a short week. It's nothing like that. If Hurts comes back, I think the Eagles are fine. And the Commanders have had a phenomenal season, but keep in mind how they're here. That was a last-second win against the backup quarterback with some interesting officiating in it, and I'm not going to get too deep into it. Last week, they needed a 2-point conversion fail at the end to stop the Saints. Remember, they have the Hail Mary play against the Commanders. I'm not denigrating this team, but like it is like there has been some miracles in Washington to keep them afloat the way they are right now.
For sure. And the other element here is the Falcons and Cowboys are a little bit more daunting than the Cowboys and Blue Rowan. But if Jaden Daniels plays the way that he did on Sunday, throwing the 5 touchdowns, leading Washington in rushing, I think that they'll be a force in the playoffs. And I think that at the bare minimum, depending on what happens on Sunday night and depending if Jalen Hurts is able to play against the Cowboys for the Eagles on Sunday afternoon,
Right.
Philly may have to play their starters in week 18
Yes.
just to lock up the division when, going into this weekend, people were talking about would they even play Saquon Barkley in week 18 to chase Eric Dickerson's record? Would they
Right.
even, have to play any meaningful football after clinching the division in Washington? Both of those scenarios are now off the table. And at minimum, I think the Commanders make life difficult for the Eagles, and they have to play their starters to lock it up on week 18.
That's the butterfly effect of the NFL, where you look at these games and a couple of plays changes weeks of the dimensions of what goes on, of who will be rested, who will be healthy, who will be on the home on the road, and it comes down to a drop Devontae Smith pass, or comes down to a call that went the other way, one way or the other. It's remarkable how that happens.
For sure. And there's not as much drama in the NFC East, but there's a whole lot of drama in the NFC North right now because all three of those teams. Now the Packers can't win the division, but they're still playing like a team that you do not want to be the team playing the Packers in the playoffs the way that Jordan Love is playing, the way that Edgerrin Cooper and that defense is playing right now. But the two teams at the top, the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings, it almost feels like if Jalen Hurts' injury, if his concussion does cost him any sort of time, if he can't play against the Cowboys, it now feels like a legitimate two-horse race for the number one seed in the NFC.
Yeah, and I think that's it. The Eagles kind of played themselves out of that, which was another consequence, whereas the Vikings are right in the hunt for it. Now, the Vikings have the Packers and the Lions down the stretch here, and that's a brutal 1-2 punch. The Green Bay Packers, according to Aaron Schatz's DVOA, are the best team in the NFL over the last 5 weeks.
Wow.
Over the last 5 weeks, they have the top DVOA in the NFL. Now, that might be slanted a little bit because they beat the 49ers, and DVOA doesn't know that Brock Purdy and Nick Bosa were injured in that game. They consider that a full-strength victory against them. But it's still a testament to how good this Packers team is playing. Vikings are obviously playing very good football. They had a little bit of a tightrope walk win yesterday. And so, it was a solid win. It was a gutty win. I have a hard time seeing them saying, well, based on what I saw yesterday, they're going to go in and beat the Packers, who are playing well, and then threaten the Lions, who are playing with their food all day on Sunday, which is what boiled down to. They were just fiddling with the Bears for that entire game.
Sometimes that's all you need to do against a team like the Bears, right? When you have the talent advantage and the culture advantage that the Lions have over the Bears, you can kind of muddle through and get by and survive in advance. But, I predicted it in the column this morning, Mike. I actually think the Vikings pull this off.
Really?
I actually think that Sam Temper is going to extend into January.
Darnold Denver?
Yeah, Jan Denver, we'll call it. They're the healthiest team of the two. They're not dealing with long-term injuries at almost every skill position on defense. Right. And I know that Dan Campbell's Marauders on Lake Erie, I don't know that they can keep surviving this injury outbreak because they're not going to be playing the Bears every single week. And, Sam Darnold is the quarterback that just won't die. We're doing Christmas Diehards on this show. Sam Darnold just won't go away. You have him being wrangled by two Seahawks in the pocket, and he throws a wing and a prayer to Justin Jefferson on a dot, on a perfectly placed ball for a touchdown to win that game on Sunday. They come up with timely turnovers defensively, even when they don't have a great defensive game, like Sunday with the interception to seal it off of Geno Smith, even though they allowed close to 400 yards of offense. They have the momentum. If they can get past Green Bay, if they win that game next week, I actually really like their chances to go into Ford Field in a revenge situation and a banged up defense in an NFC North title game and win the whole thing.
The banged up defense is the key to that, because all these other things say maybe the Lions are having a hard time. When I say they were playing with their food, they took a 2-score lead and they kind of held on to it by virtue of the fact that the Bears could drive down to the 30, 35-yard line, but then you had to go for it on 4th and 5, 4th and 6, and you get the stop. They were not stopping. They were not erasing this game. They were not taking a 3-score lead and pulling away. Their defense was having a hard time stopping Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, etc. And they kind of let this team linger in their rearview mirror, come away with the win. But you're right, that's the Bears. What happens if you have to do this and you're trying to cover Justin Jefferson when you're out of guys? The one thing you can do to Sam Darnold, he takes a lot of sacks. You can pressure him. He got a little bit of a break. He fell on his own fumble yesterday. If you can't get to him, then you don't have that element of things. So I'm still leaning towards the Lions there, but that is the difference maker in this, is that the best abilities, availability. Lions don't have a lot of that on defense.
Yeah, how much attrition can Detroit continue to navigate, manage, and survive here? I mean, we talked about it last week. If you look at their defensive depth chart, there's like 17 guys who are either on injured reserve or dealing with some sort of long-term injury. And I just look at the talent on paper of the skill positions in Minnesota and the way that Sam Darnold is playing. Even healthy Terrion Arnold against Justin Jefferson. I don't know that I love Arnold in that situation. You brought up the pass rush. They're just not getting home right now, Detroit.
Terrion Arnold versus Justin Jefferson, the league leader in defensive pass interference penalties. And pass interference penalties drawn, we know how that matchup will go when it comes to that. So I think the Lions want to be out of reach a little bit by the time that happens, because maybe they can get guys back in the playoffs. But that's exactly it for the Lions. Vikings, yeah, and again, I say to myself, like, Vikings doubt is just you doubt the Vikings. We've been doubting the Vikings since, Case Keenum. So you do that. It looks a little different. It certainly looks a little different on the one hand. On the other hand, they're still winning these games because the guy misses a field goal and you get a penalty nullified, you get a big touchdown. So we'll see.
See what happens there. We've talked a lot about the NFC so far. Let's flip the script over to the AFC. Burrow's Bengals. I'm all in on Joe Burrow. I'm all in on the Cincinnati Bengals making this improbable playoff run. They now have an 8% chance of making the postseason. You're telling me that there's a chance.
You're telling me there's a chance. Oh my gosh. Let me pull up the DVOA field, because that might be a little bit different. Right now, Bengals, 1.7% chance of making the playoffs per DVOA, which takes into account that they've got a pretty tough matchup coming up. And I believe it's the Colts. I need to pull this up quickly. The Colts have the tiebreaker advantage.
Yes, they need to lose at least once.
Right.
And, the fact that they survived on Sunday did not help the Bengals' chances of wielding those samurai swords that Joe Burrow gifted his offensive linemen all the way to the playoffs.
Yes, and the Colts hit Blue Rowan, followed by Jacksonville State down the stretch here, which is a good opportunity for. By the way, Burrow, he is the odds-on runaway favorite for comeback player of the year.
You gotta give him something, right? If he doesn't make the playoffs, if they don't pull this off, he's not in the MVP conversation. He's not beating Josh Allen or now Lamar Jackson, who is, he's crept into that number 2 hole behind Allen. You're not giving it to Joe Burrow over Saquon Barkley. Barkley's probably going to win Offensive Player of the Year. But then you look at what Joe Burrow's doing, leading the league in touchdown passes, leading the league in passing yards. You got to give him something. And the thumb injury last year, he's actually eligible under these quirky, bizarro world AP rules.
Yeah, AP has a stick up his ass about this. This should be Sam Darnold's award.
Yeah.
But he's not eligible because he wasn't injured. All he did was pull himself off the scrap heap after going from bad organization to bad organization. That's not a comeback, according to the AP. AP is you have to have a thumb injury, and then you can get a comeback. I mean, Again, Barrow's having a phenomenal year. He's going to win the passing title in terms of yards, touchdowns. People don't care about that stuff anymore. But I think it's important. He's going to have a lot of black ink next to his name. Going back to the Bengals, it was a very solid win yesterday against the Browns. The Browns went out there with DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. We're trying to kind of do a, read option, scrambly do, win with defense like they did last year, and the Bengals are having none of it.
No, and the Bengals defense has been a sieve the entire year. Swiss cheese, as an AFC scout told me yesterday afternoon, is how he would describe it. And that's really been their Achilles heel. When you look at having a quarterback playing at the level that Joe Burrow's been playing at this year, and you are irrelevant until the final 5 weeks of the season, you probably have a pretty bad defense, right? I mean, that kind of goes without saying. But even yesterday, if the Bengals had gotten that caliber of defense, and I know it's the Browns, I know it's Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but when you're going to force a fumble at the 1 yard line and you're later going to intercept a pass at the 8 yard line, those are 2 key stops that you wound up scoring points off of, both taking points potentially off the board for the Browns. Those are the timely plays that a competent defense makes for a team making a playoff push. They just haven't gotten that from their defense all year.
If only they got that from the Patriots in the season opener, against the Patriots in the season opener, which was a loss. Or they got a little more defense against the Chargers, who have a tiebreaker on them head-to-head, because they gave up too many points in that game and had to do this crazy comeback after they were just steamrolled in the first half. And I look at the Bengals and again, 0-3 start. And how many times is the story of the Bengals season going to be 0-2, 0-3, and trying to come back at the end, whether it's because of the defense, offense wasn't great in that opener either. How are they going to solve this problem because it has cost them opportunities to go back to the Super Bowl?
Right. And you can't count on the fact that Joe Burrow has 24 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions since November 3rd. Mike, that's more than 23 starting quarterbacks in the league have for their entire season.
All year. And also, you can't count on the fact that you're going to be able to keep Higgins and Chase around forever. Well, that's another issue that they've got to solve in this offseason.
Right. And now they have Denver. They're favored over the Broncos going into the weekend. That's a game
Wow.
they absolutely have to have.
Yes.
And the Steelers in week 18, I don't even know what to make of that game after they came out so flat against the Ravens on Saturday afternoon. Is that game going to mean everything for both of these teams if the Bengals get by the Broncos this weekend and they get some of the help they need? What do the Steelers need in week 18? Like this
Right.
feels like both the AFC North and whatever the heck happens with the Bengals is going to come down to the season finale.
Right. And I don't think the Steelers will get slotted because they could win the division still. And that could be the situation. There's all kinds of scenarios there. That was the real Steelers. We've seen the real Steelers in the last 2 weeks. Okay. We saw a very, and I know George Pickens is part of that. Maybe we see Pickens on Christmas. Maybe we see him in week 18. This is that team. They are not in the level of those powerhouses. The question is, can they hold off the Bengals? And they probably want to hold off the Bengals. I'm sure they look around and say, you know who we want in the playoffs? We want to take our chances with the rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, or maybe the Colts sneak in and we can just destroy them or whatever. That's what they want. I think they can do it. And again, I think it was a little bit too late, too late for the Bengals. And and I can't believe we're still talking about the Colts, but we're still have to
I
talk.
know, I know, and the fact that Jonathan Taylor decided that he was going to be so pissed off at himself for dropping the ball at the 1 millimeter line in
Mhm.
Denver that he was just going to take it out on the Titans all
Yeah,
game yesterday. Well,
yeah.
the sad saps who had to line up across from that. But again, I look at the quarterback play and I look at the defense.
Mhm.
How do you get in? How are you still relevant with Anthony Richardson playing the way that he is and that defense giving up the kind of big plays that the Colts are right now?
You're still relevant because you played a soft schedule and you have a head-to-head victory over, you beat the Steelers in a weird fluky game. You beat the Dolphins, so you have a head-to-head against them. And you got the Giants and Jaguars coming up. I mean, it's bad. It's
Yeah.
bad, but you manufactured a couple of wins. You beat the Jets when they felt like they were ready to give up. I mean, the Titans were in complete quit mode yesterday. And you do this, and they do have a good offensive line. They do run the ball pretty well. Taylor, that was like a career game for him, but they were getting good running from Zach Moss. Richardson does give them the rushing element. Defense isn't terrible. The defense, I guess, is probably a league average defense. And in the AFC, win the games you're supposed to win. We'd be talking about the Bengals if they had beaten the Patriots.
Right.
Yeah, beating the Patriots, be like, oh, this is different, and they're just in the mix with everybody else. So the Colts odds, I mentioned it was 1.7 according to DVOA. The Colts are at 11.6% chance to make the playoffs. They are 5 times more likely to make the playoffs than the Bengals because of that soft schedule and because of those tiebreakers.
Right. And the Bengals' real hopes, I think the realistic hopes came to an end when the 49ers couldn't get it done in Miami.
Yes.
The Dolphins, took care of business late, couple big,
Turnover.
down conversions, couple of untimely turnovers by the 49ers. The Dolphins handled their business, but I don't know what it is about that team. I can't buy in on the Dolphins. I don't see it. They're just too wildly inconsistent. Tua has his moments, but the defense, other than maybe Chop Robinson making some big plays in the pass rush late in the year, I'm just not buying the Dolphins. Should I be buying Miami?
Here you go. Cleveland Browns and Jets at the end of the schedule. This is all about these two teams, the Colts and the Dolphins, having these gimme weeks at the end. And they are good at stomping unbeatable teams. And that's why we're in this situation where Bengals are great. The Bengals screwed themselves. The Bengals put themselves behind the 8 ball. Now they need all these other things to happen. These two teams can win out, hope for some trip up games along the way, and they're in. I don't take the Dolphins seriously as anything but one and done if they reach the playoffs. You're right. Sunday they did a good job. They played very physical in the running game. they out physicaled the 49ers at the line of scrimmage. I think the Niners are done. I think they're by the way, it was just comical. Like I'm watching the replay this morning because I couldn't watch that one live. And I get and the 49ers get to the 12-yard line, and I'm like, field goal time.
Right.
Field goal time. It's the
Yep.
red zone. It's time for them to go and kick a
Just
field
as
goal.
they always have.
It's beautiful. And like 4th and 2 from the 5-yard line. Oh, we're kicking a field goal. Like great work, Kyle Shanahan. Way to go. But they had another one of those games. They're gone. I don't know. It's fun that these teams are still here. They give us something to talk about. I think it's going to be the Chargers and the Broncos and whoever the wild card is out of the AFC North, and that's it.
For sure. And for the first time, we're going to have games on Christmas Day. Well, not really the first time, but they're stomping all over Christmas for another year.
Yes.
Stomping
on
over
Wednesday.
the NBA.
On Wednesday, it used to be, well, if it's a Saturday or a Sunday, we'll put a game on or two. That was NBA time. I would put on the Lakers versus the Celtics and fall asleep and ignore it. And now
Sip your eggnog, watch a little hoops.
Yeah, now, I mean, it's very likely that I'm going to watch what I'm going to watch, and I'll watch the replays on Thursday morning. It's very likely, and I'll probably be a little drunk. But I got to put on Netflix. I don't have Netflix on my office TV down here. This is an office TV. It's set for NFL, so I'll have to go upstairs and put Netflix on. I'm not pleased.
Yeah, well, somebody who is pleased to be back is my daughter. You'll remember my daughter, Sophia. She picked the winner. She was a perfect 3-0 on Thanksgiving and back for the Christmas games, fresh off visiting Santa for a third time, making sure the big man has her list all buttoned up. The elf told her this week that she's officially on the nice list, right?
Yeah.
Officially, good.
She's ready to stay on the NFL nice list, trying to build on her 3-0 start after picking the Thanksgiving games to help us select the winners of these Wednesday Christmas games.
And the antlers rock. Do you have a favorite reindeer?
Clarice
from Rudolph.
Right? She is amazing. She is amazing in that. I mean, she really takes care of business when she needs to. Really helps Rudolph on his journey. Phenomenal. I like which one was the gym coach? Was that Comet?
There was either Comet or was it Dasher or was it Comet? I think it was Comet with the whistle.
Yeah, with the whistle. Gather around! I'm gonna make bucks out of you. I love him.
And the hat. He had the prototypical, stereotypical gym teacher baseball cap on.
Yeah, the gym teacher hat and a whistle, and he's like he's low key bullying everyone. It's kind of terrible actually, but like Clarice comes out of it, Rudolph comes out of it. Is that Tigger there too? Is that?
What do you have here?
This is Mittens, my cat that I got, and she can talk.
Mittens can talk?
Yeah.
Awesome. What's Mittens say?
What'd she say? She says the Bengals are out, is what she said.
Mittens can actually give NFL takes. I'm out of a job now. Perfect.
We're both done if Mittens is going to start making the picks. So, Sophia, big game on Wednesday on Christmas. We'll start with the early game. We'll go with the was it Houston and
wait, we have no idea what the early game is. It's Kansas City against the Steelers.
Kansas City against the Steelers was the first game. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Kansas City Chiefs.
The Chiefs.
The Chiefs. Mittens picked the Chiefs, and you picked the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Kansas City here as well because I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes. Something seems oddly off with the Steelers. It seems like they went into Philadelphia, lost that physical game to the Eagles, and just haven't quite recovered. Didn't look great in Baltimore the other day. I'm going to take the Chiefs over the Steelers going on the road, maybe even getting another one-score win and flying back with the number 1 seed in tow.
I'm obsessed with Arthur Smith calling his offense an old pickup truck that sometimes doesn't start. Like he literally called his own defense, his own offense, a old pickup truck that sometimes doesn't start. Arthur Smith is a billionaire's son. He's never had to have a car stall on him, like when he's trying to do something important, like in the cold and the rain. And he's comparing his own offense. So if that's all your coordinator thinks about your offense, I'm picking the Chiefs.
Well, he is the heir to the FedEx fortune, and I don't know about you, but I've had my fair share of packages not arrive on time from FedEx. So maybe some FedEx trucks along the way didn't start up in the morning,
right?
And that's what he's referencing here.
Yes, but here's the thing: he's the son of the owner. He don't drive no FedEx truck. He drives a Lambo or something like that, and says later wage slaves, and goes out of there. Wait, we got a second game to talk about too, right?
Yes, Lamar Jackson, potential MVP on the line, trying to stay ahead of those Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC North. Baltimore Ravens against the Houston Texans. Who do you got?
The um the
Ravens or Texans? Who do you like?
Ravens.
The Ravens. Are you feeding her the answers beforehand? Is your
She's
dad telling you what to say?
No, not quite. Not quite.
I think the Ravens are a good choice, by the way.
Yeah, I'm all in on Baltimore. I think that Lamar Jackson bolsters his MVP chances. Big game for them. They need it. It's late in the year. The Ravens seem to peak at the right time under Harbaugh. Give me Baltimore here.
Right. The Texans are giving up like a dozen sacks. And when they're not giving up sacks, it's incompletion throwaways for sacks. So that's that.
So we'll see if we can go 5-0 picking games with
That's
Sophia.
right.
Mike, what's your circlet game?
We alluded to it earlier, that Broncos against the Bengals game. I did a lot of research. People can find it at the Two Deep Zone. It's Mike Tanier at .substack.com about teams that might have a little helium in their reputations. One of them is the Steelers because so many penalty advantages and things like that. One of them is the Broncos, who so much of their scoring is pick six touchdowns, like 60 yards, 70-yard pick six and fumble recovery. A couple weeks ago, they had one of those touchdowns. You take them away, their offense really goes to sort of like a below average range, and their defense, while still very good, isn't necessarily up to like that championship caliber. Going to be a tough game for them. Again, the Bengals have a lot to play for. There are no pushovers, so I want to see how that one turns out. What do you have?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of go counterintuitive here. I'm going to pick a game that I poo-pooed very publicly and very adamantly on Threads last week. When the game was flexed into Sunday night, Falcons and Commanders, I kind of balked. I rolled my eyes. I said, well, why would you flex into that game? I believe they had the Dolphins game in prime time originally.
Right.
But that was before Kirk Cousins was banished to Siberia. That was before Michael Penix Jr. was inserted into the lineup. It was before Jaden Daniels had knocked off the Eagles to create some extra drama for this game and the NFC East race. I'm all in on the Jaden hype train. I want to see Michael Penix. You look at the Falcons still alive after the Buccaneers puked all over themselves on Sunday night. I'm all in. I'll be in front of the TV Sunday night watching Falcons Commanders.
It's a want to see it game. That's kind of like that. Like, yeah, the playoff implications. You want to see Jaden. You want to see Penix now that he's there. NFL sometimes knows a week or two ahead how things are going to play out. That's not a fix. That's not me talking about fix. That's, being able to read how these things are going, and they made a good call to flex that one.
They sure did. And Mike, this has been a lot of fun as always. Before we get out the door, a little bit of housekeeping. If you enjoy the podcast, please go ahead and subscribe in the Apple Podcast Store, Spotify. Check us out on my YouTube channel at Matt Lombardo 975. Make sure you subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack. It's mandatory reading. You'll be a smarter and, dare I say, way more entertained football fan because of it. Over at the Two Deep Zone, you can check me out at Between the Hash Marks on Substack. That's mattlombardo.nfl.substack.com. Mike, before we get out the door here, we do have a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Wonderful. Did they give a 5-star review and rip us, or were they actually nice?
They're actually really nice. It's from Rocket Cheddar is who left the review.
Yes.
5 stars. Matt and Mike complement each other so well. You want silver lining optimism? Matt's got you. You want snarky cynicism? Then Mike's your guy. Always entertaining, always insightful. Love listening every week. So thank you to Rocket Cheddar.
Yeah, Rocket Cheddar has been a long time DVOA and Football Outsiders. Thank you for doing that for us. Why do I always have to be like the crotchety old man? Wait, don't answer. Don't answer.
You played the role pretty well. What's coming up on Two Deep Zone this week?
Two Deep Zone, we have some specials. I have a guest column by Susan Kaiser talking about the best players ever born on Christmas Day.
Wow.
So a lot of great, and a couple of Hall of Famers who were born on Christmas Day, and Susan will be talking about that. I got a little stocking stuffer coming up. You'll see it in your inbox soon. Last minute gifts for the NFL teams.
Can't wait. What a great concept.
Right. It's old school, like a goofy old thing. Like, what are we gonna get the team that has nothing?
And who gets the coal? Who gets the lump of coal in the stocking? We got to figure that out.
You want to take a guess who gets the coal in the stocking?
I mean, it's got to be the Cowboys, right?
No, it's the 49ers.
Well, that's on brand for you.
Yeah.
Over between the hash marks, we're continuing the unsung heroes pieces, profiling the unsung heroes of every playoff team about as they clinch, but as we get ready for the end of the regular season. Sophia, this was fun. Thank you for picking the games. Let's hope you go 5-0, and more importantly, hope Santa brings you everything on the wish list.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, Sophia.
Mitten wants to say something.
Uh-oh. What'd she say?
Merry Christmas. Bye.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you very much, Mittens. Merry Christmas to you. And bye to you.
And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you, Mike, and to everybody else. We will talk to you coming up pretty soon here on the Between the Hash Marks podcast.
Take care.